Hello, I'm Langston, and I'm back on my channel, Military Election Forecasting. And today I'm going to be giving my second edition of the 2024 Senate election predictions. So I already filled out the safe states for both parties, and I could see some of these being likely. We're talking about Minnesota and Maine for Democrats, and we're talking about potentially Mississippi and Indiana for Republicans, as well as West Virginia. I categorize West Virginia as safe. West Virginia is a state that Donald Trump won by 40 points. And I realistically just don't see Joe Manchin doing 25 points better than Joe Biden there, so I've just categorized it as safe. So I'm going to move into the likely states for Republicans, and we have two. Those states are Missouri as well as Florida. Both of these states are states that, in Missouri's case, Josh Hawley is the incumbent Republican there. Josh Hawley's not too popular of a candidate. He's very seen as very pretty far right wing of a candidate. And this is the state that Donald Trump barely won by 15 points. And we know that you have to win by more than 15 to be considered safe. And with Donald Trump might not even himself being able to win Missouri by more than 15 points, I really doubt that Josh Hawley be able to outperform him, which is why I categorize it as likely. In Florida, this is a state that has shifted pretty far to the right in the last couple election cycles. It is possible this state is lean, but I just categorize it as likely. Rick Scott is the incumbent senator there, and I'm confident that he'll probably win by more than 15 points. In New Jersey, I want to categorize another state as likely. New Jersey is a state with an unpopular Democratic incumbent, Bob Menendez. This is a state that Joe Biden barely won by 15 points back in 2020, and it's more than likely that yes, Joe Biden might do a little bit better there, but he won't do better enough for Bob Menendez to win by more than 15 points. I wouldn't be shocked if he's able to, but I'm just going to categorize it as likely for right now. For other states, we have Virginia, as well as Pennsylvania, both going to Democrats by likely margins. In Virginia, this is a state where incumbent Democratic Senator Tim Kaine is the senator there. This is a state that has shifted pretty far to the left since 2000. Since the last couple of decades, you see Virginia, the Nova area, as well as the Richmond area and Virginia Beach shifted substantially to Democrats. And right now they're running Cal in Virginia, but realistically, Republicans are unlikely to win Virginia, especially in a presidential election, or even get within double digits of the state. Virginia is a state in presidential elections where there's higher Black turnout as well as continued trends amongst the suburbs, and those are not going to stop. They're not stopping nationally, and they're not going to stop in Virginia. And with that, it's going to benefit Democrats, especially with probably Republican candidate doing a little bit worse than Trump in the rural areas. But I don't think he'll do as bad in the suburbs, but the suburbs will still shift against him. And in Pennsylvania, Bob Casey is the incumbent senator here. Bob Casey is a very popular Democratic candidate, and Democrats have a lot of things going right for them in Pennsylvania. Joe Biden is expected to win Pennsylvania in a head-to-head matchup with any Republican opposition candidate. And Bob Menendez has a lot of appeal to working class voters, a lot of appeal to rural voters. He won't win all those places, but he'll still do better than Joe Biden there. On top of the fact that he's going to do really well in the suburbs, and with it being higher turnout from Black voters in a major, in a presidential race, it's going to benefit him in every single direction. He will probably win by a smaller margin, just because of the fact that Donald Trump is going to be able to raise rural turnout and working class turnout for Republicans, and it's going to be able to narrow Pennsylvania down so that his margin will probably decrease from 2018. Now we're going to move on to the lean states for both parties, and we have a couple. So starting off for Republicans, I only have one lean state. I have the state of Ohio. Ohio, as well as Texas. I'm sorry about that. I could see Texas being tilled. Texas is a state where they're running Colin Allred, and Ted Cruz is the incumbent Republican. Ted Cruz is a very weak candidate. He is despised amongst urban voters. He is going to motivate a lot of urban voters to turn out against him. And I think that you'll see higher Hispanic Latino turnout, obviously, in the presidential election. It's going to be things that benefit Democrats. But I don't think that Colin Allred is the candidate for Hispanic Latino voters that Democrats need to win in a state like Texas. I think Democrats are going to need someone like Catherine Cortez Masto, someone like Ruben Gallego, someone who can really raise turnout amongst Hispanic Latino voters to be able to win in Texas, at least as of now. And right now, Colin Allred is not the candidate. He probably will flip Denton and Collin County. He'll do really well in Austin. He'll do really well in Dallas. I think he'll even do some somewhat better in Houston. Keep up the trends in San Antonio, do well in El Paso, and I think that he'll do a little bit better in these areas in Southern Texas. Democrats, not Democrats, the incumbent candidates always improve Hispanic Latino voters regardless of party. So that's something that would probably benefit Joe Biden in 2024. But regardless, I don't think that he'll be able to run it up enough to be able to win in Texas, in my opinion. I do think he'll come close. I could see Texas being tilt, but for right now, I just categorize it as lean. In Ohio is a state where Democrats need three things to win. Sherrod Brown is a very strong candidate, but I've said this in my past video. Democrats are going to need sky high black turnout. They're going to need to outrun Joe Biden in the suburbs, on top of cutting in some dents into Trump's working class and rural base. And I think that Sherrod Brown can get two of those things, maybe maybe one, potentially two of those things, but getting all three of those things are very difficult. So the first step for him when looking at this is a state that Donald Trump won by 8 both times. And you see Sherrod Brown was able to win here by a pretty comfortable margin. For Sherrod Brown to win, he's going to have to, first step, that always comes first in the Rust Belt, he needs to get out these black voters in Cleveland. Like he needs to get them out in Columbus and some of these other areas. If he can turn them out in the city of Youngstown, I'll be able to nearly flip Mahoney County, get them out in Dayton, etc. Like get black turnout up. That is the major thing that Democrats need in the Rust Belt. Ohio's no different from Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, except it's more Republican in terms of demographics. So Democrats have to get black turnout up to even have a shot at winning Ohio. That's one of the major things. On top of substantially being able to outperform in these suburban areas like Delaware County, and in certain parts of Cincinnati and in Columbus, get out, keep up the suburban trends, which you saw Joe Biden was able to, but he needs to outrun Joe Biden there. I say he needs to flip Delaware County, which I don't think is impossible. A lot of people think it might flip in 2024. Keep up the trends in these suburban counties. That's something that he really needs to do, in my opinion, to be able to even have a remote chance of winning, in my opinion, and cut the margins in some of these rural areas. Cut the margins. I'm not saying when, obviously, but he needs to cut these margins. And I don't realistically think that he's going to do that. Regardless of who Republicans nominate, unless they nominate like a Romney type candidate who doesn't have really any appeal to working class and rural voters. And I even think, even with that, because Donald Trump's going to win Ohio by, high single digits, it'll be able to carry them down to the finish line. Ohio is a state where the last presidential candidate that ran, Obama was able to do pretty decent with working class voters and really run up the score with black turnout. And that was able to make Ohio, bring Ohio in the Democratic column. And that's something that since then, Democrats just don't have the math to do that as of now. I do think Democrats will do better than they did previously. I could see that in certain areas. I don't think it would be enough to help Sherrod Brown, but I could see how that could be wrong. And right now, that gives Republicans a Senate. But Texas and Florida, I do think are states that are still in reach, especially Texas. I could definitely see Texas going Democratic, but I think Texas would go Democratic before Ohio. But Texas and Ohio will be the place the Democrats fight the hardest for in 2024 in the Senate elections. For the lean states for Democrats, we have four. We have Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Nevada is a state where many people have said is shifting right. I actually did a video proving why that's false, and I will stand by that against anybody until I see harder data. I do think Jackie Rosen is a substantially weaker candidate than Catherine Cortez Masto. Jackie Rosen does not have the same amount of appeal to the Hispanic Latino voters that Catherine Cortez Masto has, but she doesn't really need it because it's a presidential election and more of them going to turn out to vote anyway. So she won't have to get the same amount of margin with Hispanic Latino voters to win because there's going to be more of them voting. So just based off that factor alone, it makes her lead in Clark County almost insurmountable for Republicans to be able to overcome. She's probably going to win Clark County by double digits. I think she'll do pretty well in Washoe County. And I definitely think the rural areas are going to come out big, especially with Trump on the ballot. But she's going to lose. Even if Nevada narrowed a little bit, she would still win, probably by the same margin as Joe Biden in 2020. So Democrats should be looking, pretty fair in Nevada, regardless of who Republicans nominate. Democrats will be at an advantage. In Arizona, this is a state where Democrats are running Ruben Gallego as well. We're not sure the Republican nominee will be, probably Kerry Lake or Jim Lamont. But regardless, both of those candidates are very weak Republican candidates. Ruben Gallego, I don't think is a strong candidate for the suburbs, but I think he's a very strong candidate for Hispanic Latino voters, similar to Catherine Cortez Masto. And that's a problem for Republicans in Nevada because, as we saw with Catherine Cortez Masto in the neighboring state of Nevada, people do not turn against their own representation. And I told people this, in 2022, the sun will rise in the west and set in the east before you saw Hispanic Latino voters not vote for Catherine Cortez Masto. And it's a very similar thing with Ruben Gallego. When people see themselves in someone, they're going to turn out for them, period. And with those factors, that's something that Republicans are just not going to be able to beat a candidate in a state as Hispanic as Arizona with someone like Ruben Gallego on the ballot. He's a candidate Democrats really need in that region, and he really benefits them demographically with trying to influence voters to come out to the polls. On top of the fact that it's a possibility that Kristen Sinema's in a race, but I think Kristen Sinema will hurt Republicans more than Democrats because in Arizona, like many states, there's a lot of moderate Republicans that still vote Republican. There's the same thing with, some Dixiecrats that still vote Democratic. When I mean, there might be less and less every year, but there's a lot of them that still do. And what she provides is a very centrist type candidate. We're talking about someone similar to Gary Johnson back in 2016, who took away votes from Republicans because he is a moderate Republican candidate. Like she's a moderate Republican. She is dead to Democrats in terms of ideology. Like Democrats don't support her the same way that Charlie Republicans don't support Charlie Crist in Florida. So she's dead to Democrats in Arizona. Like Democrats are never going to support someone like her again because they voted for someone who they wanted to represent their interests, and she does not do that. So with someone like her, it's not going to benefit Republicans to have her on the ballot because she's going to take away a lot of these moderate Republican voters who don't like Donald Trump but still feel like they're forced to vote for them just based on party line. And less of them are voting for Republicans every year, but it's still hundreds of thousands of them that are. And we see when you see Republicans getting 48% of the vote in Maricopa County, like a lot of that vote came from moderate Republicans that sucked it up and voted for Donald Trump. And it might be less of them to do it in 2024, but it's still going to be hundreds of thousands that do. And when you give someone like her on the ballot, she gives those voters a reason to not want to vote for Republicans. And when you have Democrats oftentimes want a more left wing candidate. The biggest problem Democrats have with Joe Biden, they don't think he's liberal enough. So for Democrats to not vote for a Democratic candidate is going to be because of a Green Party candidate or someone more liberal or someone more progressive, and that's not who Kristen Sinema is. So just based off of that, Republicans propping her up is going to hurt them even more. So Democrats should be really in a comfortable position in Arizona. In Wisconsin and Michigan, these are states where Democrats also have a pretty firm advantage. I've seen a lot of people talk about Tammy Baldwin potentially being in trouble. And the math does not back that up. Like Tammy Baldwin is in a very good position. She's a very strong candidate for working class and rural voters. I think she will continue to underperform in 2018, 2022, just because of working class, 2024, I'm sorry. She'll continue to underperform just because these areas are shifting, right? Like she would not win all of these counties this time around, I don't think. Like she's going to lose a lot of these working class counties because Trump's going to be on ballot. He's going to continue shifting these counties to the right where she's going to excel is going to be with these youth turnout in Madison. Like she's going to get these voters up huge. I wouldn't be shocked if she cracked 80 in this county. You're going to see a lot better turnout from Black voters in Milwaukee relative to 2022 and past elections. And with it, that's going to really help Democrats. She's going to, easily crack 40 in Waukesha. She'll probably lose um, Ozaki by single digits, and she'll put a dent in Washington, kind of like do better in a while, just do better all across Wisconsin, regardless of the candidate. They don't really have a chance, especially when they had an incumbent who barely won against a candidate that they raised three times more money than. So with those factors, Wisconsin is not looking good for Republicans at all. In Michigan, the candidates for Democrats are more than likely going to be between Elisa Slotkin and Hill Harper. I think both of these candidates have different strengths. I think Alyssa Slotkin is better for working class voters, while I think that Hill Harper is obviously better for Black voters in Michigan. So with that, I think both of them have better strengths. Demographically, I would pick Hill Harper because just based off of why Democrats have lost Michigan in 2016 was because of Black turnout. So I would take a candidate who isn't going to have any struggles there. But in a presidential election, there's going to be higher turnout from those voters as well. Like you're not going to see 2016 turnout in Wayne County. So as long as that's not an option, Democrats are substantially favored in Michigan, regardless of who they nominate. You're going to see better turnout from Black voters in Detroit. Continue shifts in the suburbs, which is going to benefit Democrats, as well as um, just as well as better turnout from youth voters, especially in places like Ann Arbor. I do think Donald Trump will continue to improve the working class and rural voters, but it will not be enough to counteract where the population lives in Michigan, regardless of who they nominate. So the last state I'm going to categorize is Montana. Montana is a state where is pretty Republican. Obviously, this is a state Donald Trump won by a safe margin. He'll probably win it by less than 15 in 2024, but regardless, he's going to win it pretty handily. John Tester is a very strong Democratic candidate, and he has a very significant crossover appeal that other Democrats lack. Very similar thing to Mary Peltola in Alaska. And with that, it's going to be really hard to take him out, regardless of who Republicans nominate, especially considering Montana is a very pro choice state. Montana is in favor of a lot of Democratic policies. And when you have someone running a more localized campaign, it's going to be hard to beat him, especially with more right wing Republicans jumping into the race. So I have Republicans nearly winning the Senate 51 to 49. I could see Republicans easily winning Montana. I could also see Democrats potentially flipping Texas and Ohio. But for right now, it's just how I categorize it. So thank you guys so much for tuning to my channel. Make sure to have a nice day, you guys. Goodbye.